Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Podcast. My name's Craig Ray, joined by Stewart Weir. Well, we're going to have to, unfortunately, dissect that horrible result in Europe against Liverpool on Wednesday evening. Just a reminder as well, though, before we kick on, just the little niceties at the start. This is the Independent Ranger podcast made by fans, for fans, and all content is free. If you go into the forum, you can see the forum, obviously, articles, social media, our podcast here, and the history archive. We've also got a brand new website that started over at gersnet.co.uk. It's been redesigned, where you can see all of your Rangers fan media content over there. And also as well, just before we get into it, just a little message from our first sponsor, that is Forest Precision Engineering. They're a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company. They've been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years, and we're absolutely delighted that they're back in their podcast. You can get them over at forestprecisioneng.com. And you can also visit the Forest Precision Executive Lounge. It's a stunning new hospitality area within the historic main stand at Ibrox. For more information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. So, as I said, joined here this Friday night by the wonderful Stewart Weir. Stuart, how are you doing? At least it's a Friday, eh?
At least it's a Friday. I wasn't quite sure tonight whether they were starting with 2-minute silence or not. It might get us through the next half hour or thereabouts. But a chastening week, a sombre week. I don't mean emotionally, but it's you start checking on record books and history books to find the last time this happened. And I mean, to quote somebody else, these things do happen, but maybe not in the manner you expected on Wednesday.
No, I think you're absolutely right there. I mean, the thing for me was that it all started so well and it ended up going so wrong. Personally, I just felt that the tempo, the intensity, and maybe even the aggression at times wasn't there in that second half. I think we just let them play. I think the first goal, in a weird way, kind of sets the tone, in my opinion, the equaliser, because I thought it was very, very soft, first of all, to concede the corner, and then the actual defending from, I think, Sakala and Tav there. And it just, we kind of get back in it a wee bit and nearly actually scored to go 2-1 up at the break with a decent chance through Tav. But then, it was absolute curtains in the second half. Where do you think it went so wrong in that second half, Stuart?
Probably kick-off. Joking aside, the point you make there about the equaliser, the thing was, though, it was almost like a rerun. It was like, this is the corner that we're going to work. Oh no, we're going to get a second chance at it, and we'll do the exact same thing again. And Firmino isn't exactly he's not exactly a target man striker. You know what I mean? He's more of a excuse me, more of an inside man who's creative and maybe doesn't have the poacher instinct. So it was a goal, for him. It was a bit disappointing. The second half, though, was utterly shambolic, and I remember Rangers playing Juventus years ago in the Champions League, and we're losing, 4-0 or 4-1 or something like that. And when the fourth goal went in, it wasn't a case of shutting up shop. It was basically putting down a marker to one or two of the Juventus players that's all you're going to score tonight, because we're going to be more physical and we are not going to stop running, and we're going to challenge you. There was none of that on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, for me, some of the goals were just far too easy. I mean, the second goal, especially Joe Gomez running down the right hand side. I mean, I think the big disappointing part about that is the fact that we've seen him come in, I think, for Liverpool, the Napoli game, the 4-1, and he was absolutely ran ragged the whole game by the Napoli front line. And then you've got someone like Ryan Kent, who, let's face it, he's not kicked his own backside this season. Well, to be honest, for most of last season, but he's a guy that's supposed to show up in these big occasions, and I just felt, talking about him in particular, he just seemed to show no sort of, like no bravery at all on the ball. Anytime he got the ball, instead of trying to take on, the likes of Gomez or anyone else, he was always passing it back to Barisic. I think then when that happens with Barisic, he's always under a bit of pressure. The fans are already on his back most of the time, and then he's passing it back. I mean, Sakala as well. I mean, I actually didn't think Sakala was awful. I mean, the 2 times in the first half he got in and he put across 2 decent balls. But you know what? It was 2 times more than what Kent done. And I just think someone like him, take on those guys, it was just a wee bit disappointing from my point of view.
The thing was, though, Craig, on Wednesday, you were struggling to identify between those that played well and those that just didn't show up, or those that were even average and those that didn't show up, because there wasn't much to pick between anybody. The goals, watching it back, which, I had to do a couple of times, the amount of time that Rangers give up possession is incredible. Every one of the goals, now I know goals are created because other people make mistakes, or the opposition make mistakes, or they don't do certain things. But to give the ball away as easily as they did was incredible.
No, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. As I say, I did feel it was too easy. I mean, that's the thing that I don't understand as well, is like the first half performance I thought was, you couldn't have expected much better, and then just the total collapse. And as I say, I just think the aggression, the intensity wasn't there, and it's very ironic because I was at the press conference on the Tuesday night, and that is what the manager said. The manager used those words, aggression, exactly. And we were in the first half, and then it kind of just went off. There was far too many players in that squad, and that squad of players that, unfortunately for me, just didn't show up. And to be honest, they haven't showed up at all this European campaign, bar that first half on Wednesday, and possibly the first 50, 60 minutes against Napoli at Ibrox. And it seems to me that I don't want to go all ranty and this, that, and the next thing, because as Frankie said before, we're going to try and calmly analyse this tonight, but it just seems that a few of the players are kind of there because they're just glad to be in the Champions League. I mean, John Lundstram, unfortunately, he again was speaking on Tuesday before the game, and somebody asked him, are you glad that the club's at least back in the Champions League? And he gave a great answer, in my opinion. He just went, no, because the results haven't been good enough. I mean, it's all well and good saying that, but unfortunately, when the performances and, the aggression and intensity isn't there, it's like, what's the point in saying stuff like that?
The frustrating part is having played so well in 2 games against PSV to actually get yourself to the Champions League, to then basically turn in performances where you're almost saying we've reached our goal. That's unacceptable.
As especially, I mean, at Rangers, do you know what I mean? I know we've waited 12 years to get to this level, and look, I did say before, well, afterwards, always made sorry that we all knew this was going to be a tough group, and I did say that I think there was a chance that we could have finished second just as much as we could have finished bottom. And it's not the fact that we've lost all 4 games so far that gets you, it's the manner of the performances and the defeats. And as you say, it's like, we've reached the Champions League, we've hit that target in terms of, getting the money. It's not been as much as we thought it was. But
see this though, playing out a tournament in your head when the draw's made. I was as guilty as anybody. You're looking at it, there's 2 battles of Britain. Rangers might be suited to these kind of games. There's Napoli, they're playing well. There's Ajax. Are Ajax really any better than anything that Rangers played last season? Or are they so far ahead of PSV? And you start, I'm not saying getting carried away with the possibility, but you are looking to see where you might pick up points. After the first game, you're basically then asking, are we going to pick up a point? And it's a measure. I'll say all in. It's a measure of where Scottish football is.
Yeah.
It's fine beating each other, over a season, but they've been showing up just now.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on with Scottish football. That was actually going to be the next point that I was going to move on to. I mean, we've had this week Celtic beat off Leipzig, Hearts beat 5-1 off Fiorentina, 7-1 off Liverpool. And it just seems that Scottish clubs in general just cannot seem to compete in the Champions League. I mean, I'm just thinking about this off the top of my head, and I might be wrong, right? But I think Celtic's won over Anderlecht. That would have been 2017, I think. I think that's the only time a Scottish team has won a game in the Champions League for the last 9 or 10 years. I mean, that's ridiculous. And I mean, I know a lot of people, look, we try and be positive about the Scottish game. We want to talk up as much as we can. And I know we've had the national team that's qualified for a Euros and all that. Okay, their performance at the tournament wasn't great apart from one game. But it just seems on a whole that Scottish football in general is just nowhere near ready to compete at that level, unfortunately.
I think as well, if you look at Rangers' results in the Europa League, you kind of kid yourself on a wee bit saying, well, that team's as good as anything that's in the Champions League. So you beat X, Y, and Z, and you say, last season they were playing in the Champions League, or they've done this or they've done that. The fact is, they're in the same Europa League as you're in. They're not any better. That particular season, you're in the Europa League. That's your level.
No, exactly. They're in that competition for a reason, aren't they? And it just seems to be one depressing episode after another. I mean, in terms of sort of another negative, that game obviously was injury to Connor Goldson. I don't want to be one of the. I mean, if you put two and two together, you might say, yeah, well, it shows you just as soon as we lose Connor Goldson, we concede 5 or 6 goals in the second half. But I don't think it was, quite as simple as that. I mean, you've got a young boy in Leon King coming in. Let's face it, no one really was great on Wednesday early, but we're not in a position here where we're going to be overly critical of someone in his position, especially now that he's going to have to come in with, the fact that Goldson's 100% going about and Davies is probably going about as well for the next wee while.
You might be 100%, you might not be 100% critical, but you might be 100% critical of how you ended up with that player at 18 having to be relied upon.
Yeah.
And again, it's dead easy to say, well, this guy's injured, or this guy's suspended, or this guy was injured during the game. For me, there's more fundamentals to be asked. I am still bewildered at the likes of Balogun, not being there. And I've heard it said a few times, people saying, look at the money that Rangers brought in. They bought this guy. They sold, they sold Bassey, Patterson, Joe Aribo. Did it? That's fine. If you're selling a player, to my mind, if you're selling a player for 20 million quid or 15 million quid or 10 million quid, you're going to have to spend the same again to get somebody who's comparable. To then go out and talent spot and say, our scouting system is good enough that we can find an instant replacement. No, you can't. You will not find an instant replacement. Bassey was exceptional last season. He wasn't exceptional from the first moment he walked through the door. Aribo really come onto a game, and it's maybe this season you actually realise what he did do for that team. He took a couple of years to develop as well. Patterson, okay, you're almost like Everton paid for the potential there, because how many games did he actually play? He was actually maybe more, believe it or not, more of an established player within the Scotland setup than he was at Ibrox, because he had to wait his turn to play if Tavernier was either ready or was rested. So, I'm acutely aware that talent spotting is one of the most difficult things you can do in sport. But given the reputation that certain individuals have at Rangers, you really have to be looking at the fact that you have players who are the equal of those who are actually on the pitch to take their place if they're not actually there. And I have to say, on Wednesday night, the Rangers team looked as if it was, it was full of guys who were closer to the end of their career than they were at the beginning.
Yeah, and that is one of the disappointing things for the summer shoot. I mean, the fact that I think a lot of fans, have been calling on it for years in terms of, for example, a midfielder, just a typical number 8, sort of, if you want, box-to-box player. No one was signed. The goalkeeping position was something that a lot of fans were critical of. No one was signed. This right winger situation that people have been critical of for quite a number of years now, under the previous manager as well. Well, we did sign what we thought was a right winger, but it turns out he's better on the left. As you say, it's just the quality of players that have been brought in, just haven't been good enough. And it's not one person's fault in particular, it's a number of people's fault. It's scouting, it's Ross Wilson, the director of football, it's the manager. And, you would think that the manager will have the final say at the end of the day. But obviously, we don't know that. But I mean, in terms of going forward, obviously, I think most people expected a defeat on Wednesday. Obviously, it was the manager that was the manner of it, that was the biggest issue. But do you think that the manager's job might be on the line in the next week? Because, as I said earlier, I mean,
I think it has. I think it has to be. Rangers as a club or an entity or an institution do not lose 7-1 at home.
Yeah.
Historically, go and see where that result rests in the pantheon of everything that Rangers have done over the years. There is something, these things can occur in football where a team just excels, you have an off night or an off day, and you end up, shipping 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. I get that. But there is something about, I'm not quite sure whether it might be the Dutch mentality. Do you know? Some of the biggest defeats I've seen Rangers suffer have been when you've had a Dutchman in charge. Advocate, great manager as he was, you think in certain performances against Celtic where it was just too easy and it seemed to be acceptable. And I think, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst can complain about the performance at Celtic Park back in February. Yes, he can complain about other performances here and there along the way. And he can have his thoughts on Wednesday night. But there just seemed to be a distinct lack of, I was going to say fight, but it's not fight. It was actually a distinct lack of pride in the performance. That Rangers seemed incapable of stopping Liverpool and didn't have any tactics or the wherewithal to actually say enough was enough. They're never going to win a game from 4-1 down. So how does that then become 7?
No, you're right. As I've said, it is a manner that hurts the most. I think for me personally as well, with Giovanni, I don't want to start throwing out things that he should be sacked or this, that, and the next thing, because look, at the end of the day, this time next week, we could be sitting top of the league into a semi-final at Hampden. But on the other hand, we could be 5 points behind and out a cup as well. So it is, that is the sort of small margins in football. But I think the biggest one for me is the fact that after that first Celtic game at Parkhead, he seemed to learn from it in the next couple of performances against Celtic, more so at Hampden. But it now seems that after that happens, he's not learning from it. And for me, that's got to be the most concerning thing.
I still wonder, Craig, if the be-all and end-all was actually Rangers getting into the Champions League. It was almost like our season is complete, mission accomplished. Let's watch the bank account as the money comes in. let's charge the fans a fortune to watch these games, and then, you know, and then worry about the performances or what we're actually going to do on the pitch afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, football, it doesn't take much to tip a game in somebody else's, favour. I get that. The performance in Amsterdam was criminal at times.
Mm-hmm.
The goals that were given away, you put them in a horror show DVD, to show you defensive frailties. 45 minutes against Napoli, they played well. Red card, a penalty, turned that game in its head. Analyse what happened at Anfield, damage limitation exercise. How many times did Rangers look as if they were going to land a punch on Liverpool? And then you had Wednesday night. I mean, this will go down historically, not just because of a lack of goals, a lack of points, but just almost the performance levels. This has been an abject failure to such an extent that your season in terms of what you might have achieved in Europe, forget the Champions League, but even the qualification for the Europa League has been jeopardised because of the levels of performance previously. And that, for me, is totally unacceptable given what was achieved last season. I know players are a year older. I totally get that some of the mainstays in that team have been sold, but you then are looking for people to step up, and that just hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened. And the lack of appetite or the lack of hunger of players to replace those who are no longer there, that for me is a concern, because, I can always remember a player either being sold or a player coming to the end of his career, or a player, being dropped or no doing the business. And there has always been somebody there to challenge them or at least fight for that jersey.
Yeah.
There were some players on Wednesday night weren't even fighting for the jersey they were wearing, let alone fight for the chance to excel if they got a chance. I think there are real problems. A lot of it's is down to attitude, and nobody's going to convince me or change my mindset that in terms of European competition, when Rangers got that aggregate victory over PSV, that was job done. Not kick on and let's go again. It was jobs done. We've reached we're now sitting at the big table. Nobody's going to notice if we're sitting in a high chair, and, being spoon fed or disappear from the table early on. That, I honestly think it was almost like that was their target, and now it's been achieved. Listen, let's concentrate on what we might be doing domestically.
Yeah, and I mean the optics certainly aren't good, and that's something we're going to move on to next as well. Just after another wee message from our sponsors, and that is the official Rangers coin copy, Zenith Coins. It's a great little coin, a good little gift. Each one has a unique serial number engraved on the outer rim and comes complete with a Rangers presentation box and certificate of authenticity. You can join Rangers legends and famous Rangers fans like Alan McCoy, Derek Johnson, Marvin Andrews, Tom Stoltman, Gordon Ramsay, just to name a few, and own your own Rangers Club coin. And the best part, as we all say, is you can get a wee bit of money off it as well. You can get 10% off your purchase by using the code GN10. So, yes, another thing that I found interesting, if we just want to come off the actual, physical game itself for a wee moment, it was the incident that was on social media after the game, where the guy's name, Oliver Piefer, sorry if I get the name pronounced incorrectly, Oliver, who's the Rangers head of partnership and management, seemed to post a picture online in the Liverpool away end saying something to the effect of up the Reds. It turned out today that he's actually left his post at Rangers now, according to the Scottish Daily Express. We don't know, whose decision that was at the end of the day, but I mean, talking about optics, what was this guy doing?
It's difficult. If you are, if your pals are Liverpool fans, Liverpool are playing at Ibrox, you sit beside your pals, you might be a Liverpool fan. There's a certain way to conduct yourself. And listen, I would not have had an issue with the guys, sitting amongst these pals, or a guy saying, these are the guys that I grew up with and went to football with, and they're coming to Ibrox to see their team. Isn't it fantastic that Liverpool are playing at Ibrox, and all the usual chat? Then comes the kind of dividing line that you do not cross, and that is that if your team beats Rangers are your employers, so you have to show a certain amount of loyalty to who you're actually working for and who's paying your wages. And I would, I know down through history, I know Rangers players who have played for Rangers but have supported other teams that Rangers have played against. Even within Scottish football, guys that have grown up as Dundee United fans, guys that have grown up as Hearts fans, guys that have grown up even as, Hibs fans.
Mm-hmm.
And, I get that, but I cannot remember anybody. Well, I can remember one player, only because he ended up in the Celtic end. But that aside, I cannot remember anybody that despite their boyhood loyalties and who they supported, then sitting at Ibrox or Hampden or wherever it was, supporting the opposition when you are still associated with Rangers. That bit, I cannot condone. It's like there's a certain level of behaviour that you have to, adhere to. Absolutely fine joining your pals for the game. But I think I also have to ask the question, and seriously, what was the purpose of putting that on social media?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was naivety in its extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Joking aside, being so naive is almost a sackable offence in itself. It was like, look at me, what I've done, and look at us and what we're doing. No, that photograph never needed to see the light of day. You could have kept that in your family album, or kept it in your mantelpiece, or had it tattooed in your arse for forevermore. But it was your picture and your photograph and your, if you like, private moment. You didn't need to make that public. And I think it was just like gross naivety. And I think, the pylon that's come from some people has been exacerbated or has been fueled by the fact the performance that the team put in was so abject and so poor. I think maybe the guys copped a double whammy on that one. Not just the fact that fans were disappointed that he actually what he did, but also the levels of performance on the pitch just made it doubly worse for them. But he felt it right to resign. It might be that somebody somewhere went, or said to him, actually, it'd be a good idea if he did go. But I just think it was a terribly, terribly naive. Listen, he might pick up a similar role elsewhere. Good luck to him. But I think, tonight, 48 hours on from what he did, I think the penny might be dropping that he's suitably unemployed right now. And, losing your job or whatever is never nice. But to lose it under such circumstances, you have to think to yourself, that's a mistake you're not going to make again. The other thing I got was the job title. What in God's name is that job title about? That is the most contrived job title I've seen in some considerable time. That's almost like, a director of mechanic and metal storage brackets paper clips. I mean, it really was asking what do you actually do? Well, I don't even need to ask that question anymore. But I think it's been a bad week for Rangers. It's been 10 times worse for that guy.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think maybe the funny thing is that you can take any funny part out of it as well, apart from the job titles that, the guy's apparently also been employed by Man City and Man United in the past. So, I mean, he might be a Liverpool fan on paper going into a away end at Ibrox on Wednesday, but he doesn't really seem it if he's going to be looking for the odds as well. But I just, as you said there, it's for me, it's the fact that he's posted it on social media. Now, look, we don't expect everyone that works for Rangers to be a Rangers fan, okay? Whether that's a playing side or otherwise, it's never ever going to happen, right? But it's the optics for me. It's the fact that you're broadcasting it. Naivety as well, as you said, and that's not even actually something that I thought about until you sort of mentioned it there. The guy clearly, with the title, whatever it is he may do, is obviously an intelligent man, or supposed to be an intelligent man. If he's held sort of high profile positions at clubs like Man City, Man United, and now Rangers. So the guy's obviously, respected somewhere, which is, it just makes it even more sort of, weird as to why he's done it. But I think the thing for me and a lot of fans is that, again, optics. We've seen a lot of decisions that this board has made, at least since the turn of actually probably since we won the league, that have been questionable at best. And a lot of fans think that the board just really don't care about the support. I think that a lot of them, or certainly the senior management, show up as far as contempt to the support. And whatever your opinion on that may be, it just seems that, for a lot of people, this is another example of, well, I'm not for Rangers, but, I can go into the Liverpool end and I can brag about Liverpool, battering Rangers and then post it online as well. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, looking at it as well, this guy would work in the commercial team under James Bisgrove, and I don't know how the process would have went, but as you mentioned earlier, 60 quid was charged for these Champions League tickets, which is the highest amount that Rangers could legally from UEFA get away with charging. I mean, this guy, I don't know if he did or he didn't, but there's every chance that this man could have had, an input into what those ticket prices might be. So I think if he did, and that was the case, and look, we'll never ever know if that's going to be the case or not, but for me, all that just makes it 10 times worse,
Listen, as I said there, I'm aware of Rangers players, in the past who have had allegiances to certain other clubs, and they would talk about it. They would talk about it maybe in private. They might never make it publicly known, but the fact is they have supported clubs. To believe that everybody's out, whoever's going to walk through the front door at Ibrox has always been a Rangers fan. I mean, you're kidding yourself on there. There's guys who have been raised in England or all over Europe, and who might, dare I say it, have never have heard of Rangers until they've actually signed for them. Mm-hmm. So you can't really say, he's been a Rangers player or a Rangers supporter from birth. There one or two have tried that before to justify their existence at Ibrox, and it hasn't quite worked because people, cut through the chaff very, very quickly. But I say again, he might well have some of the most iconic teams in British football on his CV, and might actually support one of the most iconic teams in British football. But you do wonder, experience-wise, work experience-wise, what he's actually learned and what he's actually picked up, given what he's just the act, and somebody say the heinous act he's just committed.
Yeah, well, as we say, the optics aren't good, but we'll try and sort of move back on it now after that wee episode. obviously tomorrow we need to move on. We've got a massive game, Motherwell. Not tomorrow, I'm saying that's on Sunday, Motherwell.
You're still concussed.
I know. I'm not. You're right. It's Friday as well. That's why I'm still thinking about what might or might not happen later on.
For the people out there, I was only joking when I said I was going to the drag bingo after I've done this. But that's what I'm telling you anyway. Anything I do will remain private. I'll maybe posting it up just in case I lose my job. But anyway,
exactly. Well, that's the thing. You know what? As long as you don't broadcast it, then who are we to judge? But anyway, yes, big game on Sunday against Motherwell. Clearly, it's a must-win game. Every game at Rangers is a must-win game. I mean, I know you said before that you think the manager is now under severe pressure. How close do you think it is until, well, let's say if you were in charge, that you would be looking to make that decision? Do you genuinely believe that maybe another bad result in terms of drop points and then that could be it?
Listen, this is going to be a strange season, you know, because in a matter of weeks, days, in fact, we have the hiatus that is going to be a World Cup, and who knows where, you know, Rangers are going to find themselves ahead of that World Cup. You know, this is something. It's a completely new experience. I know people will say, well, you know, historically, if you go back, there was the winter in 1962 that Rangers didn't play any games here, there, and everywhere for so many weeks and all of that. That doesn't cut it. This is a completely new experience. I think where Rangers find themselves at that particular point in time is going to be very telling in terms of what the future holds for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Motherwell's never the easiest place to go. You know, you remember the upsets there of previous Rangers team who are I have to say much better than the current side. You remember I'm not quite sure about it because the sun was particularly strong that day. But you can remember the total aberration that Rangers had back in 1991, where if they were losing to Motherwell, and if they lost 1-0 or whatever it was, they only needed to draw against Aberdeen, the final game of the season. Except Rangers went chasing the game and eventually lost 3-0, and that meant that Aberdeen, because I only needed a draw at Ibrox. Yeah, listen, if you know your history, you'll know how things turned out or panned out. But, you know, I can list, you know, several games where Rangers have gone to Fir Park and come back having suffered a very sobering experience simply because they just haven't matched a Motherwell side who were up for it. I know certain Rangers players, I know a lot of players for other clubs as well, have never actually managed to get to grips with the slope at Fir Park, you know, where you can be running up the hill just by running across the pitch, never mind from end to end. And it's also a ground where give them credit, the home support are quite vociferous, especially, you know, when Rangers are the old firm are there. It's their big chance to make a noise and be noticed on the TV. So it will be a difficult and an uncomfortable day for Rangers. However, again, that might just be played out in their head. If Rangers go there and recognise their strengths rather than potential weaknesses, they'll get the result that they need. But you're absolutely right in what you say, Craig. We are only in October and already every game appears like a must-win game. Mm-hmm. You know, and I said it a couple of weeks ago, why is that? The reason is because, one, the performance levels have been so mediocre at times. And not just mediocre, the performance levels have been different each and every match. Sometimes even during individual matches, that you don't know what Rangers side's actually going to turn up for the second half, let alone the game in general. And I think Rangers maybe played one of their get out jail cards a few weeks ago when Celtic lost at St Mirren, got them back into the running. But you're still looking at game after game for a long, long time this season, being games that Rangers have to compete in and have to pick up 3 points in, rather than just say, well, that was an away game, we'll just take the point and move on to the next game. Again, because the form or performance level at Ibrox hasn't been that great.
Mm-hmm. I genuinely did think, maybe 6 weeks ago, more so after that Celtic performance, 5 points behind, how much the margins in the goal difference. I genuinely did think that one more result, whether that would have been a loss or a draw, would have been fatal for Rangers in the title race. As you kind of touched on it there, we get out of jail free card when St Mirren beat Celtic. And look, Celtic have had their problems recently. The last I think three league games they've not been very good. 2-1 wins and a 2-0 loss to St Mirren. And
the thing is though, Craig, just on that, and thanks for reminding me, the point that certain Rangers fans have picked up on, and it might have been through gritted teeth, the way Celtic have won some of those matches is exactly what you want from your team.
Yeah.
Losing an equaliser so late on it against St Johnstone, I would say Rangers would have been heads on chest and woe is us. Whereas Celtic kicked off, went back down the pitch and scored again and won the game.
Mm-hmm.
And to reiterate, those are the kind of things that you're looking for your own team to do. So you cannot be too disappointed if your biggest rivals in opposition do it. Set the bar, set the benchmark where you think your team should be, and if somebody else surpasses that, move the bar up a bit higher.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right, and as the old saying goes, it's those type of games that win you titles. And when you think about sort of Gio in the last, it's been about a year that he's been in charge. There's been a couple of late-ish wins. I think the game away at Easter Road, with the roof penalty, the game at home to Aberdeen, where we've ironically again scored. But apart from that, there's not really been many sort of performances like that where you'll get a goalie on to win it. And the other thing as well is there's not been that many performances under Gio that have really swept sides away. I mean, we've had a few 4-0 wins this season, but as good as that is on paper, I really don't think, maybe bar, I think the St Johnstone game at Ibrox, any of them were really incredible. I mean, you're always going to take a 4-0 win against Hearts at Tynecastle. Obviously, even the game last week against St Mirren, I thought, I wouldn't go as far as saying that 4-0 flattered Rangers, but for that set, as soon as we get the second goal, it was kind of like just sort of, there you go, the game's won, and then we sort of picked them apart in the last sort of 10, 15 minutes or so in the second half. And it just seems that in terms of intensity, we can't really seem to match that for a full 90 minutes like we did. We didn't do on Wednesday. And it's weird to see as well. I just feel like confused about the whole thing, because we seen that week last season where we played Braga and Celtic Thursday, Sunday, both games going into extra time. And the fitness levels that those players showed to do that was incredible. End of the season, the Scottish Cup final, the Europa League final, doing it as well to get that win at hand. And it just seems that's gone. And I've said, I think, certainly since that Celtic game at Parkhead, I went, realistically, I would be pretty content if Rangers went into the last 5 games, into that split, 2 points behind Celtic, knowing that if you win your last 5 games, you've got an Old Firm game at Ibrox, you'd win the league. I would take that, and I would still take that right now, because I think the team would be capable of doing it. But the problem is, are you even going to get as little as 2 points behind at that point?
I don't buy into the hangover from last season theory. Simply because if Rangers had been as hungover or as weary or as tired or fatigued as some people are trying to make out after last season, they would not have beaten PSV. So that argument for me doesn't stack up. I know you might see a different performance of of a weekend, but Rangers still had that level of performance in them at the start of this season, and it just seems as if somebody's, has tied some sandbags onto their legs or onto their or a 30-kilo kit bag, the way some of them are running about just now. And that goes back to what I said previously. Qualification for the Champions League was so important to so many players. You do wonder if that was, that was job done, mission completed.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you make a lot of good points there, Stuart, and it has been good to have you on tonight to sort of dissect that.
I think maybe not so much dissecting. I think I'm maybe needing oxygen myself just now.
Well, you never know. You might get some later on at the drag bingo.
Well, I intend to take one bottle with me just in case.
I'm not be passing any further comment on that. Don't worry. We'll let the viewers decide for themselves what they want to make of that one. But just before we go, guys, just a final message from one of our sponsors, Football Prizes. They've got weekly competitions, and you can go over to the Gersnet online Twitter page to see this week's competition. But at the end of the day, it was obviously a terrible result on Wednesday. A lot to go through there, a lot of oxygen that's been needed this week. But we got through it in the end, Stuart. It's been good to have you on this Friday, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
And maybe a mix of benzodine and ketamine or something like that.
Aye, no, absolutely. So thanks very much for listening tonight, guys. As always, we will be back on Sunday at 9:30, where I'll be in the hot seat again with Rossarine to reflect on the Motherwell performance, but hopefully it's a win and a good result, and hopefully we can end on that wee positive note. But thanks again to Stuart for joining me, Craig Ray, tonight on the Gersnet podcast, and thanks to all you guys at home for tuning in. Thanks very much.